We're about to start shortly. I would like to request the panel speakers to come on stage as well as the moderator. Thank you.
So therefore we said we will start a bit, give them a time. Very quickly, first of all, thank you for attending, and I hope we could have a very good, stimulating discussion this afternoon. Now, as you have know that today's session covers two very important aspects. One is the whole theme about the IDB's annual meeting is about the transformation and about achieving road to SDGs, which is very critical, especially for our member countries, where the sustainable development goals are a very good, are high on our agenda. It's on the high agenda for the IDB as well. Now the issue is that all the financing for the SDGs are not sufficient from the multilateral sources and for the official public sector sources. So one of the, there's quite a bit thinking that the needs which are to meet the challenges of sustainable development goals are much more than what we could do. Therefore, there's certainly a need for a market or the private sector investors who wants to promote development in different parts of our member country should be either incentivized or should be given opportunity to participate in this very important and worthy cause. We have a very, I would say, good and very distinguished colleagues on this panel. I will very quickly introduce to them, and then we can start our discussion. I think we will ask our panelists for some questions, then we'll open the floor for the question taken from our audience. So let me quickly introduce I am going to start from the far right. From right is Mr. Muhammad Daud. He is a Managing Director and Global Head of Sukuk Financing, HSBC. HSBC has been a leader in the development of the Sukuk market. We are very thankful to Daud being on our panel. Next to Daud is Mr. Michael Bennett. He is Head of Derivatives and Structured Finance at the World Bank Treasury. Michael has been instrumental in developing the Sukuk market from a conventional multilateral development institution, and I hope we could benefit from some of his experience. They have already assisted issuing of Sukuk for a very worthy cause. Next to Michael is Mr. Kemal Chagate Amerigi. He's a Director General for Foreign Economics Relation, Ministry of Treasury and Finance or Treasury. Again, we are thankful for him to join us. Again, Turkey is another country where the Sukuk market is gradually growing, and Turkey is quite active in issuing Sukuk. And to my immediate right is Mr. Nabil Badr. He's Deputy Head of Banking Supervision, Directorate, Bank Al-Maghrib. And we are very thankful to him, particularly that he's our local partner in organizing this event, and we're thankful to you for the very nice hospitality and for very beautiful environment, and that's very stimulating for us. So let me actually start quickly with going to maybe Michael, asking, Michael, we keep hearing different things about social bonds, impact bonds, many of these, blue bond, green bond, and all that kind of thing. And I know that you have done the, Sukuk issuance for IFM, which is a very pioneering, which we appreciate. How do you see that the a structure like Sukuk, which is a more asset-based, how that can more stimulate or incentivize the market to come for achievement of SDGs?
Thank you, and also thanks for inviting me here. It's a great pleasure to be in this beautiful country of Morocco for this event. I think the argument that Sukuk should appeal to an ethical investor base is obvious and is strong, because I think clearly the values that underlie Islamic finance, underlie Sukuk, are not just Islamic values. These are really universal values. So the argument that we have a growing investor base that is ethics-driven, or that at least defines their investment criteria to include ethical criteria, and we have Sukuk, which is coming from an ethical system. The argument that those two things should work together is very, very strong and is very clear. The reality, I think, is proving to be more difficult. I can tell you from our experience at the World Bank, we've now issued 3 Sukuk to support a specific facility connected to the World Bank, which raises money to immunize children in the poorest countries of the world. This was, I think, clearly an ethical purpose and was done through Sukuk, and we raised in total through the 3 issues $750 million to date. So from that experience of marketing those Sukuk, I can maybe just raise a few of the what I would see as the challenges, and see if the other panelists can pick that up and maybe address some of those challenges. The primary challenge in this area is that we have a growing ethical investor base, but largely not in the locations where a Sukuk investor base exists. So when you look at the ethical investor market, overwhelmingly European, after that North America, and then really just a scattering of investors in Japan and a few other markets. So the primary Sukuk markets, which I would say Middle East and Southeast Asia, have not been drastically touched by this sustainable investing movement. So we have immediately an issue that if you make a Venn diagram of sustainable investors and Sukuk investors, the area where the 2 circles overlap would be very, very small. So that's an immediate challenge. So then the way that we thought to address this challenge was we need to bring in these European overwhelmingly, but also American and Japanese ethical investors into the Sukuk market. And the challenge there is that Sukuk is a complicated product. I think those of us who work in this market can convince ourselves that's not the case, that it's a tradable instrument, that it's not all that complex, that people should be able to understand it. But if you're just a standard conventional bond investor, looking at something like Sukuk suddenly looks like you're looking at a structured product. And there are a lot of investors in the world, and unfortunately that's a lot of the sustainable investors who only buy what we would call plain vanilla products, plain floating rate or fixed rate instruments. They don't buy structured products. So as soon as you show them a Sukuk, and it includes a diagram about how the structure works, they shut off, because they say anything that requires a diagram is structured, doesn't fit into my portfolio. So that is an enormous challenge when you talk to traditional sustainable investors, again, overwhelmingly North American and European. How to get them interested in something like a Sukuk, which looks like a structured product. And I think really the answer to that, and then I'll stop talking, to me the answer to that is really to keep bringing products. Because the more they see a pipeline of products coming out, ethical Sukuk products, the more incentive they'll have to do the work needed to study the product, to get their accounting department to study the product, to get their operations colleagues to understand how to settle the product. To me, that's the solution. Now, that's a difficult solution to say we're going to keep bringing up products when we don't know how well they can sell. But I think the only way we can get this two markets to converge is by showing the conventional market, the conventional sustainable market, that there will be enough pipeline of projects and pipeline of Sukuk to make it worth their while. And that really puts the burden on people like the Islamic Development Bank, the World Bank, to create that pipeline. Because for private companies, obviously it's even a harder sell to say, we don't know if the market's going to be there, but we want you to invest your time into trying to create this market. So there's still a huge onus on the public sector from the issuer side, I think, to do that work, to create that pipeline, and to, over time, convince the Western sustainable investors that Sukuk is a product that there'll be enough supply of that it's worth their while to investigate it.
Thank you, Michael. I think you have highlighted a very important issue that supply side is the one which is certainly needs to be improved. So let me move on to our host, our host here. Morocco has been one of the latest countries who have issued a Sukuk as recently as I believe last year. And they're also in the middle of introducing, they have given license to I think 5 participation banks, and this is all a very good development. So I want to hear from our hosts that what is their experience has been in introducing the Sukuk in their market, and how they think that it will help them achieve the SDGs. Thank you. I believe he's going to make a presentation, please.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I will speak in Arabic. مرة أخرى أرحب بالبنك الإسلامي للتنمية وبالضيوف الكرام في المغرب البلد الثاني. في عرضي سأتكلم حول نبذة عن واقع القطاع المصرفي. يعني قبل أن نتكلم عن الصكوك سأعطي نبذة عن مؤشرات المرتبطة بالقطاع المالي والبنكي في المغرب، ثم سأتكلم بعجالة حول المنظومة المغربية للمالية التشاركية، وكذلك التحدي الكبير التي تواجه هذه المالية في المغرب، ألا وهو تدبير السيولة وإعادة التمويل. لأننا نظن أن الصكوك، وسنتطرق إلى ذلك في التقديم، الصكوك أداة مهمة في إطار تسيير سيولة البنوك وتدبيرها. وبعد ذلك سأتطرق إلى الصكوك في المغرب كأداة لتحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة. بشكل مختصر سأعطي نبذة عن واقع القطاع المصرفي المغربي. كما ترون القطاع المغربي هو جد مهم في القطاع الاقتصادي، بحيث نرى أن مجموع الأصول البنكية تمثل 147 من الناتج الداخلي الخام. فيما يخص الودائع فهي تمثل 94% من الإنتاج الداخلي الخام، بالإضافة إلى القروض التي تمثل 93%. كذلك هناك تواجد للبنوك المغربية على المستوى العالمي، فتوجد البنوك المغربية في 33 دولة، بما فيها 28 دولة إفريقية، بالإضافة إلى 7 دول أوروبية. عدد مؤسسات الائتمان لدينا 19 بنك تقليدي، 5 بنوك تشاركية. نحن في المغرب البنوك نسميها تشاركية بدل اسم إسلامية، و3 نوافذ تشاركية، يعني 3 نوافذ لدى البنوك الكلاسيكية، بالإضافة إلى 32 شركة تمويل، شركات ائتمان، وكذلك اقتناء الفواتير، بالإضافة إلى 13 جمعية للقروض الصغرى. الأصول توزع حسب المساهمين، ب 66% بالنسبة للخواص المغاربة، بالإضافة إلى 16% للبنوك التي يمتلك مختلف رأس مالها بنوك أجنبية، بالإضافة إلى البنوك التي ترتبط بالقطاع العام. فيما يخص النشاط التشاركي، فهذه الأرقام هي إلى نهاية فبراير 2019، فعدد الوكالات يعني بعد سنة من مزاولة النشاط البنكي التشاركي وصلنا إلى 109 وكالة بنكية، وإجمالي ودائع $1,600,000,000 درهم، بالإضافة إلى عدد الحسابات التي تم فتحها في إطار هذه البنوك التشاركية وصل إلى 61,847 حساب بنكي، بالإضافة إلى إجمالي التمويلات بالمرابحة التي وصلت إلى 5,200,000,000 درهم. وقد تأتى تحقيق هذه الأرقام في ظرف وجيز، يعني سنة لمزاولة النشاط، بفضل وضع واحد البنية تحتية منظومة متكاملة لاحتواء الخصوصيات المغربية، بحيث نحن في المغرب لدينا مقاربة مختلفة. فهناك على الصعيد العالمي بعض الدول التي بدأت بمزاولة النشاط وبعد فترة وضعت الإطار القانوني والتنظيمي. نحن في المغرب بدأنا بوضع الترسانة القانونية والتنظيمية وكذلك التعاقدية قبل بداية مزاولة النشاط. فبالنسبة للإطار التشريعي ترون أن هناك العديد من القوانين التي تم سنها وتم اعتمادها من طرف البرلمان. فهناك القانون المرتبط بالتسنيد والذي هو الذي تخضع له الصكوك في المغرب. هناك القانون البنكي الذي أدخل باب خاص بالبنوك التشاركية. هناك الظهير المرتبط بالهيئة المكلفة بإعطاء الفتاوى فيما يخص المالية التشاركية وهي تابعة للمجلس العلمي الأعلى. بالإضافة إلى أن قانون المالية عملنا على مستوى سنوات، عديد من السنوات، على وضع إطار جبائي موازي للصرافة الكلاسيكية فيما يخص الصرافة الإسلامية، بحيث أن تكون التنافسية متساوية بين المصرفين التشاركي والكلاسيكي. وأخيرا هناك مدونة التأمينات التي تم اعتمادها في 2016 بعد إدخال التكافل، والآن هي في طور التحيين والتعديل من أجل ملائمتها للخصوصيات الشرعية المرتبطة بالتكافل. الإطار المؤسساتي هناك الحكمة الشرعية، بحيث كما قلت هناك مجلس علمي أعلى يترأسه جلالة الملك ولديه كاتب أمين عام، ويتوفر على هيئة شرعية تتكون من 9 أشخاص مع منسق، وهي التي تصدر الآراء الشرعية المرتبطة بجميع القطاعات كيفما كانت، يعني بالقطاع البنكي في إطار البنوك التشاركية، بالصكوك وقد أتكلم عن ذلك في حين أصل للصكوك، وكذلك تعطي رأيها فيما يخص سوق الرساميل، بحيث تحال طلبات الرأي عليها من طرف بنك المغرب أو الهيئة المكلفة بمراقبة التأمينات أو كذلك الهيئة المكلفة بمراقبة التكافل، بحيث أن نحن في المغرب يجب المرور عبر سلطات الإشراف قبل طلب الرأي من هذه الهيئة. كذلك وضعنا إطار تنظيمي غني يتعلق بالمسائل الاحترازية، كذلك المسائل المحاسبية المرتبطة أو التي تحترم خصوصيات البنوك التشاركية، بالإضافة إلى وضع ترسانة من العقود التي تم الموافقة عليها من طرف المجلس العلمي الأعلى، بحيث كما ترون هناك منشور يتعلق بالمواصفات التقنية لجميع المنتجات التي تم ذكرها في القانون البنكي، ألا وهي المرابحة، الإجارة والمشاركة والمضاربة والسلم، وكذلك منشور يرتبط بتوظيف الودائع الاستثمارية من أجل تمكين البنوك من تلقي الودائع من أجل تمويل أنشطتها. هناك كذلك منشور يتعلق بتحديد شروط وكيفيات مزاولة الأنشطة من خلال النوافذ، يعني ممكن لبنك كلاسيكي أن يقوم بمزاولة النشاط التشاركي عن طريق تسويق المنتجات عبر نافذة، وهذه النافذة يجب أن تحترم العديد من القواعد لتمكينها من احترام مبدأ التفرقة بين النشاطين. هناك كذلك كما قلت العديد من العقود تم اعتمادها وإعطاء إصدار الرأي بشأنها من طرف المجلس، وأول عقد كان هناك عقد فتح الحساب، يعني هذه البنوك يجب أن تبدأ بفتح حسابات، تم المصادقة على العقد في هذا الخصوص. كذلك تم اعتماد العقد المهم والذي يشكل غالبية أنشطة نشاط البنوك التشاركية، ألا وهو المرابحة. المرابحة بشقيها: المرابحة التمويلية من أجل اقتناء العقار، وكذلك المرابحة المرتبطة بالمعدات المهنية. كما أن اللجنة الآن بصدد البت في صيغة جديدة لترتبط بالوثائق المتعلقة بالإيجار المنتهي بالتمليك. الآن فيما يخص مزاولة أنشطة هذه البنوك، لديها مصدرين من أجل التمويل. لديها الحسابات تحت الطلب، ما نسميه في المغرب الحسابات تحت الطلب والكونتافيو، ولديها كذلك الآن تم إصدار رأي اللجنة فيما يخص ودائع الاستثمار. يعني في المستقبل إن شاء الله ستقوم هذه البنوك بتعبئة الموارد من الجمهور من أجل وضعها في إطار ما يسمى بالودائع الاستثمارية. ودائع الاستثمارية والتي هي مرتبطة بميزانية البنك، بحيث يتم استعمال هذه الودائع الاستثمارية وإعطاء تمويلات، ويتم اقتسام الربح بين الطرفين على أساس يتم التعاقد عليه في إطار هذا العقد. يعني هي مسألة لاحقة بإذن الله. الآن الصكوك، يعني ما تم العمل عليه في إطار المنظومة المغربية، وضع الإطار والترسانة القانونية التنظيمية، وكذلك أول إصدار من أجل تمكين هذه البنوك من تسير سيولة. إلا أن هناك تحدي كبير يبقى، وهو تحدي ما يسمى بالنيغوسيابيليتي. الإطار التنظيمي الذي تكلمت عليه المرتبط بالصكوك، فهذه تقريبا سنة تم إصدار قرار لوزير الاقتصاد والمالية التي تتعلق بالخصائص التقنية لصكوك الإجارة وكيفية تقديمها للعملاء، وتم الحصول على رأي بمطابقة، كما تم الإخراج أو إصدار العديد من النصوص التنظيمية التي سمحت بأول إصدار في المغرب، اللي كان تقريبا أول صك سيادي بتاريخ 5 أكتوبر 2018، والذي قام على عقد الإجارة بقيمة إجمالية وصل قدرها إلى 1 مليار درهم، وتتعلق ببيع منفعة مملوكة للدولة المغربية لأجل قدره 5 سنوات. وقد وفر الصك مردودية تناهز 2.66، وتم الاكتتاب به. يعني باش نعطيكم فكرة حول أهمية هذا الاكتتاب، تم الاكتتاب فيه أكثر من 3.6 مرات. الآن الأبناك التقليدية في إطار الاكتتاب، الأبناك التقليدية اقتنت 39% من هذا الإصدار، الأبناك التشاركية 35%. بالنسبة لصناديق التوظيف الجماعي للقيم النقدية فقد اكتسب 16%، وكذلك هناك مستثمرين آخرين 10%. وقد تأتى ذلك بفضل الإطار التشريعي والتنظيمي الملائم. بالنسبة لنا نظن أن الصكوك ممكن تساهم كأداة في تمويل مشاريع ذات أبعاد اجتماعية واقتصادية وبيئية وتحقيق أهداف التنمية، ولكن باش تكون عندنا واحد النظرة مكتملة حول دور الصكوك في هذه التنمية المستدامة، خاصنا نكملوا، يجب أن نستكمل الإطار القانوني والتنظيمي، بحيث هناك مشاريع قرارات لوزير المالية التي ترتبط بصكوك، أنواع جديدة من الصكوك، وهي الصكوك التمويلية والصكوك الاستثمارية. وفي هذا الإطار نقدروا ناخذ واحد الحكم حكم مكتمل حول أهمية هذه الصكوك في هذا الإطار، باش تكون عندنا المنظومة متكاملة. وأول شيء يجب القيام به هو أن هذه الصكوك لا يجب الاقتصار على إصدار صكوك سيادية، وإنما يجب التشجيع على إصدار صكوك من طرف البنوك التشاركية وكذلك الشركات والمقاولات، لأنه الصك يعتبر واحد المصدر للتمويل ويجب استعماله. إلا أن هناك العديد من الضوابط اللي تكلم عليها الممثل البنك الدولي، هي المسألة ديال أن البنية التعاقدية جد معقدة، يعني يجب العمل على تسعيلها ووضع واحد الإطار مبسط التي في إطار ستاندرديزيشن اللي تمكن الولوج بسهولة لهذه الأداة، أداة التمويل. ثانيا هناك عديد من القواعد اللي مرتبطة بالصكوك على أساس أنها دعوة للجمهور للاكتتاب، وهذه واحد القواعد اللي تتوضعها واحد الهيئة مراقبة السوق الرساميل، واللي هي تتحتم أن تكون هناك واحد ما يسمى بلا ترانسبارنسي في إطار إعطاء جميع المعلومات حول هذا الإصدار، وهذه تتشكل واحد الإكراهات هي كذلك بالنسبة للمقاولات. يعني تنظن أن لا كانت المقاولات الكبرى ممكن لها تصدر صكوك، المقاولات الصغرى يجب العمل على وضع إطار يرتبط بما يسمى بالديسكلوجر، هو مرتبط وخاص بهذه المقاولات الصغرى والمتوسطة. وثالثا تنأكد بأن احنا في إطار السندات، ما يسمى بالسندات، يعني السندات اللي تقوم بها الشركات أو البنوك الكلاسيكية اللي هي صكوك أو سندات خضراء جرين بانز. فممكن في إطار التنمية المستدامة أن هذه البنوك التشاركية وهذه المقاولات تصدر صكوك خضراء كذلك، من أجل أن تكون في إطار تحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة إن شاء الله. وشكرا.
Thank you so much. I really congratulate you for the progress you have made in terms of introducing Islamic finance or participation finance, and especially issuing the Sukuk. I think that's certainly a very good roadmap for other countries who may be following your suit. Now, let's move to a bit more developed market. I move to my next brother, Kemal Chate. Turkey has quite a good established track record of Islam participation banking, and they also have been issuing government Sukuk. So could you please tell us that if Turkish government has any strategy as such, how to mobilize market resources through Sukuk, both for the benefit of the SDG-related projects, as well as to help the participation banks pursue the development agenda?
Thank you very much. I also would like to start by thanking you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here in this beautiful city, and I also thank Moroccan authorities for the overall organization. As you said, Islamic banking, or as we call it, participation banking in Turkey, has a long history, actually, more than 30 years. If you look at the current figures, out of 52 banks currently operational, we have 5 participation banks in Turkey, and they represent almost, 5.5% of the industry. So they are at not a very developed stage, but they have some share, and we believe that there is huge potential actually for further growth. The government's aim is actually to increase this 5% first to 10% and to 15% gradually. And actually, because of the specifics of the participation banking system in Turkey, we think that they can serve especially to the underbanked segments of the society, especially in the central Anatolia and eastern Anatolia part. So we have a very well-established plan to promote participation banking in Turkey, and very visible steps that we took recently was to establish 2 state-owned participation banks in Turkey, one is actually Ziraat, one is actually Vakıf. So we invested as the government to make sure that this side of the Islamic industry is growing in Turkey. And if you look at the potential, actually it is even much higher, according to independent studies. And not only that, not only Islamic banking, but also insurance side we have been promoting recently. We have established the necessary regulatory framework for tekaful in Turkey. Currently 8 tekaful companies are in operation. And on the asset management side as well, in terms of private pension scheme, there is a lot of interest in these kind of interest-free instruments in Turkey. Let me move to the Sukuk side a bit. Actually, in Turkey, the first Sukuk came from a private bank. We always take pride in our private institutions, strong banks, and actually they were the innovators on that front as well. In 2010, the first Sukuk, international Sukuk, came from a private Turkish bank, a participation bank. And actually, as the government, we've been working for a long time actually to set up the necessary regulatory framework. But it was only possible in 2011. And from there on, actually, starting from 2012, we started issuing regular Sukuks in the international markets. And up until actually this year, we recently actually issued one again this year. We have tapped the market for 6 times, and in total we raised $8 billion from the international markets. We see this market as an integral part of our annual borrowing program. If you look at the annual figures, actually, on average, we issue around $6 to $7 billion from external markets. And Sukuk product actually presents excellent diversification opportunities for us. Because in our conventional Eurobond transactions, most of the investors are international investors from US, Europe, or some financial centers in Asia. Middle East is usually very limited. But if you look at our books, or if you look at the allocation figures on our Sukuk transactions, actually on average, 50% goes to Middle Eastern and Asian investors. This is quite an achievement in our view, in terms of diversifying your investor base as well as your funding needs across the globe. This is the key part of it. And not only the external side, actually, we have been issuing in the local market as well, this product. And if you look at the overall size that we reached over there, is actually 30 billion Turkish liras. It's around $6 billion. And actually, product-wise, we've been actually innovating a lot in the local market as well. We've been issuing gold, based Sukuks. We have been issuing, inflation index Sukuks. We have been issuing hard currency Sukuks for local investors. This is just for to broaden the investor base, cater to the needs of the local investors who are interested in this product. So it has been actually working quite well in Turkey. And again, this is actually helping us deepen the capital markets in Turkey, bringing, interest-sensitive investor base into the system. I think gold is a great example over there because, we have culturally, similar to many of the countries represented here probably, have a lot of, gold which are held by, households outside the system. But with this kind of a product, actually, we were able to bring a significant portion, not huge, but a significant portion into the system. So I think this product is working quite well for us, and we are actually trying to innovate further. For example, on the external side, all the issuances so far we did were standard ijara structure with 100% physical assets, but with a recent modification to the law, we actually expanded the scope. We are now in a position to do murabaha kind of commodity-related sukuks. We can do istisna type of sukuk. So we are broadening the scope and make sure that the regulatory framework is ready for both the government side as well as for the private side to tap the market as much as we can and promote this asset class. And actually, this is all related to the intention of the government to make actually Istanbul a global financial center. We will probably come back to that later on. But obviously, Islamic finance is a big part of it. And we are making sure that the conventional financial system works hand in hand with the Islamic side. And there are no arbitrage opportunities, or for example, from a taxation point of view, they are treated the same. So this is an ongoing effort for us, and it's actually working quite well up to now. Thank you.
No, thank you so much. Very informative. Certainly, you have made quite a big progress, and I think that's very encouraging. Now, let me move to Daud. Daud, you have heard from a multilateral, you have heard from a country who's just starting Islamic finance, you heard someone who has made some progress, and you are the market-facing, dealing with on day-to-day basis. What do you see that how our member countries, I'm sure we have a representative from different member countries, how they could utilize the Sukuk structures for achieving their development objects and development goals? And how do you see the overall market for such Sukuk?
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Zamir, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for both to the IDB and to the organizers. If I touch upon the second point, maybe first, if you look at the overall green or SDG market, back in 13, at least in 13, it was a very small nascent market. In 2014, somewhere around $15 billion worth of issuance. But last year, in 2018 alone, the market has increased in size more than tenfold. So $208 billion worth of issuance. So we've seen, a very significant increase in the market, and largely to Michael's point earlier, driven by the sentiments of conventional investors across, largely into Europe, but also elsewhere. So I think what's really important is that this is a market which is only going to grow in size and significance as more and more investors allocate more and more of their funds towards SDG type investments. We as a bank have done that. There are many others doing that right now. And increasingly, when we go on the road and take issuers on roadshows to meet with investors, particularly in Europe, a lot of questions that do come up from the investor base are very much driven around, what are your plans? What are you doing from a sustainability perspective? What are you doing in the green sphere? So I think there are a lot of lessons that Islamic finance and the Sukuk market can adhere from this market. It's a market which has characteristics which are similar to the Sukuk market. We are seeing pricing benefit to be obtained for issuers in the green market, albeit more in the Euro space. So I think from a Sukuk perspective, we've got a lot of work to catch up on. But as Indonesia has shown, both earlier this year and last year, when they issued their own green Sukuk, that they were also able to not only tap into the Sukuk investor base, but they were also able to tap into the green investor base. In both instances, they had significant diversification, somewhere close to 40%. And these were investors who ordinarily would not have participated into their transactions. So there's very real, meaningful diversification to be had. So I think these are all, important factors and considerations for the Sukuk market. Islamic finance principles themselves are very compatible with green. So the question is, why is it we're not doing more? Well, and to your earlier point, Dr. Zamir, around Sukuk structures, well, green also requires identification of assets. It's more around the use of proceeds and identifying use of proceeds, which can be tagged as being SDG friendly. And so I would say in many ways, the same amount of structuring work that goes on in terms of identifying assets for a Sukuk, a lot of those work streams are similar, not entirely similar, but are similar to some of the structures that we have seen being used in the Sukuk market. If you take the one reference example that we've seen so far to date for Indonesia, Indonesia has an element which is an Ijara-based element, and they have an element which they use the proceeds of the issuance to fund new assets, to fund the development of infrastructure. Now, that structure can be used very easily because what Indonesia did do was to identify those assets, those infrastructure developments, which are green in nature. So, on day one, structuring the Sukuk using its existing structure was very straightforward. And I think they've shown the way in terms of how this can be done. I think going forward, I think the challenge is really going to be, so the challenge is more really around the ongoing reporting requirements, where in the case of governments, it's not just the Ministry of Finance, it's other entities, it's the involvement of other entities which is required as well. So I'll stop there, but I think in short, the existing structures, and certainly in the case of Indonesia, the existing structures can be deployed very efficiently to be able to structure these transactions both in Sukuk format as well as green.
Thank you. Thank you, Daud. Very good to know that you are involved in that green Sukuk, very successful transaction. And that's, thank you so much for sharing experience. Now, let me go back to Michael. And I know, Michael, you have been very instrumental in this vaccination Sukuk. And I think if you could share with us why you chose Sukuk over conventional financing for that particular for purpose, and are your the IFM, are all they satisfied with the outcome of the Sukuk? Why did you prefer Sukuk over conventional for that particular cause? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, these immunization Sukuks I mentioned are really an excellent case study from this area, because this immunization facility was set up in 2006, and it entered the conventional bond markets that year. And until 2014, it did all its funding in conventional terms, probably 25 or 30 different separate bond issues done to conventional investors. And it was extremely well received by the sustainable investing or ethical investing community, as you can imagine. This is a facility that gives money away ultimately to immunize poor children around the world. So it's very difficult to find a more pure ethical play than that in the bond markets. So tremendous appeal to sustainable investors, which meant largely the investor base was European, with some Americans, some Canadians, some Japanese, but largely European. So in 2014, we looked at that investor base and we said, we are missing large sections of the world, and Sukuk would be one way for us to diversify that investor base. So we executed a Sukuk in 2014, the first for this immunization facility, ended up being a $500 million facility. And for that first issue, what we tried to do on the marketing was to bring this idea of an ethical investment, a sustainable development goal type investment, to the Islamic investor base. And so we pitch very heavily that this is really unique, this is sustainable, this is ethical. And I would say, although the deal sold very well, the angle of it being particularly sustainable did not seem to resonate in the Middle East investor base and the Southeast Asian investor base. What we heard from a lot of investors at that time was, that's great, but all of my investments are ethical as long as I invest in Sukuk, as long as I'm investing in Islamic compliant, Sharia compliant investments. My entire portfolio is ethical, so there's nothing more ethical about what you're bringing to me than everything else I have in my portfolio. So the deal sold very well, but we did not get feedback from that deal that suggested to us that we had really made serious inroads in terms of trying to get the Islamic Sukuk investor base to want to or to demand sustainable products. So the next year came around, we wanted to do another Sukuk, and this time we flipped our marketing. And this time we said, what we're going to do this time is we're going to go to the sustainable investor base, largely Europe again. And we are going to heavily market this Sukuk to them, and we're going to see if, last time we tried to market to Sukuk investors ethical, this time we'll market to the ethical investors Sukuk, and we'll see if that resonates. And again, the Sukuk we were able to sell, we did a $200 million issue, but there we also ran into the problem I described before, which is that the conventional investor base largely was quite scared of Sukuk. And again, conventional ESG investors are largely plain vanilla focused investors for the most part. And if you bring to an investor that buys straight bonds only a prospectus that on the first page when you open it has a large diagram, and all of you I'm sure have seen Sukuk prospectuses, and the diagram on the first page, which has an SPV in the middle and has arrows going over here and says this transaction will be going on, but don't worry about it because at the end of the day the money will be coming here. It scares these people to death because they say, you can tell me that this is don't worry about it, but look at this diagram, it looks very frightening to me. So again, we ran into challenges when we tried to flip the script and say, let's see if we can get conventional European ESG investors to buy Sukuk. Now again, we were able to sell that deal, but through tremendous efforts. So from those two experiences, I would say we are still in an early phase in this activity. Because I would not be fooled by, let me put it this way, if I can sell my bonds to investor X, it's not very difficult for me to sell a green or sustainable version to investor X. Because if he's already buying my bonds, if I come to the same investor and say, this is the same thing, but it also does all these wonderful things, it immunizes children, it saves the planet, it's a very easy sell. The investor's going to say, yes, I like your bonds, I like this one even more. I'll take this one also. So any sort of sustainable investment that's sold to the same people who will buy the non-sustainable version, I don't consider that a big win. That's in some ways you're just cannibalizing your existing market. So in my mind, the topic we're discussing will be a success when someone can issue a Sukuk, and because it's sustainable, because it's green or otherwise more sustainable, that in itself allows them to access an entirely different investor base than they already have. Which is why I say, in my mind, the metric of success in this area will be when we see, and I agree that the Indonesia green Sukuk is a good first example where we saw some of that, when we see conventional ESG investors buying SDG or green Sukuk in large numbers, because that will be where we've penetrated with the Sukuk product an entirely new investor base. And I think that's, from my experience, not simple, but it's definitely what I would say is the metric of success and the goal that we have at the World Bank Treasury.
Thank you, Michael. Very fascinating what you have gone through, and your observations, experience is very valuable. Let me move on to, again, go back to Chagatai Bey. I know that Turkey has a very ambitious plans to develop Istanbul into international financial center. I think we would like to know, is Sukuk development is part of that strategy, and what are your plans? And you have heard from our colleagues from the market, from the World Bank, the difficulties they are faced, not difficulty, but challenges they have faced in developing this market. So what are your plans to, in terms of converting that, your Istanbul into an international to a financial center?
Before actually going into that, let me just, contribute to the discussion we had about this, difficulties. I mean, in our experience as well, obviously, going into the right people and, bringing that demand to life is not easy. But I agree with what, Michael said, actually almost, 20% of all of our Sukuks goes to conventional investors, either in Europe or in US. But if you check those names, actually they are the ones who are already familiar with the credit. So that's true that, new investors with this, different structure usually shy away. But I think, again, maybe Davut Mohammed can also, mention that. But I think being the Sukuk product being, index eligible, meaning getting into the indexes that all the global investors follow, significantly helped in the last couple of years, because in the early part of the process, that was also one of the issues for conventional investors to shy away from the product, but that's also helping. So I think with these kind of little steps, and for example us, we are also doing all of our Sukuks in 144A format, just to make sure that the US investors can participate and they can be active, especially in the secondary, so that this product is not an illiquid one. It is helping to some extent, not greatly, to be frank, but it is something. So I think it's also a matter of coming up with the right product, a matter of marketing. I mean, it's a mixture of all of these issues, and it's not easy, obviously. Back into your question about Istanbul, actually, yes, that's a long lasting project we have announced, almost 10, 15 years ago. As you all know, Istanbul is actually lies at the heart of many civilizations, both historically as well as geographically. Within a 4-hour flight around Istanbul, actually, you can reach a significant amount of GDP, significant amount of population. So I think there is a very significant business case for Istanbul to be a perfect center for not only for financial industry but global businesses, globally. And actually, that's what we are trying to promote. So when you look at the studies, what it takes to be a financial center, obviously you need to have the connectivity in terms of geographic location. You need to have the right regulatory setup. You need to have the human resources to supplement all these businesses, financial industry. You need to have right infrastructure, both physical as well as ICT. And maybe the most difficult, you need to have macro stability in terms of financial markets, in terms of currency and everything. So actually, we've been doing a lot in all of these areas in Turkey. We've been also trying to attract international talent to Turkey with the project so-called Turquoise Card that we actually are currently employing. So we, give a lot of incentives to international professionals who would like to work in Turkey in the financial industry. And there's also a physical infrastructure part. Actually, we've been investing a lot. That's the easiest part, to be frank. We've been investing a lot, bringing all of the banks, some of which were located, especially the public ones, in Ankara to Istanbul. We moved all of them to Istanbul, including Exim Bank, public banks, the banking regulator. So we are trying to make sure that there is a center of attraction in Istanbul. This is progressing, but again, I think the macro stability is the key factor here. That's something we are currently working on. You have to have a low inflation and a stable currency, obviously, to make this kind of a long-term process a success. But maybe I should also mention some successful examples. For example, IFC has a big office in Turkey. They not only serve to Turkey but also the surrounding countries. EBRD similarly actually have a big office in Turkey, serving a lot of the surrounding countries, and also real businesses like Coca-Cola, Microsoft, Pepsi. They serve like in some instances close to 100 countries out of their Istanbul office. So this trend is already there. It's already happening, and with the right policy setup in terms of macro policies as well as right incentive structures, we are trying to supplement and foster this trend actually.
If I may, I just follow-up question on that. I think that sounds all very good, makes a lot of sense. But if we come back to the particular Sukuk market, we know that Malaysia has tried to develop Sukuk market, but there's no other center. So does Turkey is developing Sukuk market is a part of the strategy? And if yes, then what steps you have taken or you plan to take?
Definitely. It's a part of the strategy and broader Istanbul Financial Center concept. The Islamic finance side has a very important element there, actually. And to foster the Sukuk market, actually, regulatory work is pretty much done. So we have all the necessary regulatory, base, both for the government side, the public sector, as well as the private sector, already there. But you have to, when you implement the strategy and you look at the results, you come to realize that actually it's a matter of capital markets deepening. And if you look at the Turkish financial sector, it is a very bank-driven financial sector. So in that respect, what we are trying to do is we are trying to increase the share of capital markets within the country. But unless you nurture the conventional market, it is very hard to nurture the Islamic part of it. So we are having this kind of a difficulty in that respect. So the conventional bond market for corporates, for example, in Turkey is not huge either. So first you have to come up with the right policies, right incentives, so that the conventional market picks up, and then maybe you can show value and then create opportunities for the Islamic side. So I think that is the difficulty we have. But from a regulatory perspective, from a long-term public sector policy perspective, I think the necessary regulations are there. It's a matter of, again, deepening the capital markets and changing the system slowly but surely into a more capital markets-based financial system, which is not very easy, actually.
Okay, thank you. It's good to know. Let me come back to Brother Nabil. Morocco has ambitious plans to exploit solar energy, and I understand that they are, kind of exploring that quite seriously. And you mentioned in your presentation that some of the corporates have issued green bonds. Now, is there any plan for issuing a green Sukuk or making any, pave the way for the corporates or the participation banks to issue green Sukuk?
Thank you for this question. There are some elements to the answer
تساؤلكم هو أن أذكر أن في المغرب هناك خريطة عمل مرتبطة بالصرافة في إطار التنمية المستدامة. يعني هناك واحد الإطار أو خريطة أو استراتيجية ديال القطاع المصرفي مع وزارة المالية مع بنك المغرب تم وضعها سنة 2017 إبان تنظيم لا كوب 21. وهذه الخريطة تتوفر العديد من النقاط اللي كلها عندها علاقة بالتنمية المستدامة من خلال الجرين بانس، من خلال وضع إطار أو منظومة أو مسائل جبائية تشجع البنوك أو المتدخلين في القطاع المالي على وضع تمويلات في هذا الإطار. يعني في هذا الإطار، هذه الخريطة ليست هناك نقاط مرتبطة أساساً بالصكوك، ولكن هناك فلسفة عامة تترتبط بتشجيع كل ما هو أخضر. وفي هذا الإطار بنك المغرب كبنك مركزي تشرف على البنوك هو الآن في إطار وضع نصوص تنظيمية من أجل الإشراف على المخاطر المرتبطة بالبيئة. فكما تعرفون هناك تمويلات تقدم من مقاولات شركات، ولكن الإشكالية على أن بعض الأنشطة هي معرضة للمخاطر البيئية. ففي هذا الإطار هناك إشراف عن قرب، وهناك نص تنظيمي سيخرج حيز تنفيذي إن شاء الله مستقبلا. كذلك بنك المغرب تعي بشكل كبير بأهمية هذه التنمية المستدامة، فهي البنك المركزي الوحيد في إفريقيا الذي هو عضو فيما يسمى بالشبكة، شبكة البنوك المركزية الخضراء، وهي واحد الشبكة موجودة فيها الدول الأوروبية، فيها البنك المركزي الأوروبي، وتتوضع الآن الإطار العالمي المرتبط بهذه المنظومة. اللي تنذكر لحد الآن لا توجد هناك قواعد مرتبطة بشكل مباشر بالتمويلات البنكية ولا تدخل سوق الرساميل في ميدان التنمية المستدامة. والدور ديال هذه الشبكة أنها توضع وتوضح شنو هو دور البنوك المركزية في إطار التنمية المستدامة. هذا من ناحية. من ناحية أخرى تنأكد على أن كما تم التطرق إليه في هذا الصباح أن مقاصد الشريعة تجتمع مع مبادئ التنمية المستدامة. يعني 17 مبدأ أخذناها مبدأ مثلا محاربة الفقر، الابتكار، البنية التحتية، محاربة الجوع، هي كذلك أهداف مستطرة من طرف البنوك التشاركية. يعني تنظن أن هناك توافق وتكامل بين المبادئ مقاصد الشريعة ومبادئ التنمية المستدامة. تبقى الإشكاليات والتحديات الكبرى. التحديات الكبرى أن كما قلنا الصكوك تطرح إشكاليات فيما يخص التعقيد البنية التعاقدية. يعني هي معقدة، وأنا هذا التساؤل موجه للجميع. يعني في إطار هذا الجرين ولا الأخضر أو الأزرق أو ما إلى ذلك، لازمنا هذا العنصر فسيتم تعقيد بشكل أكبر هذا الصكوك. يعني خص يكون هناك عمل من أجل توضيح وتبسيط وتسهيل هذه الإصدارات وإضافة إليها هذا العنصر الأخضر.
Green element. Thank you.
No, I think I totally agree with you, the streamlining of these terminologies, because I think there's so many different terminologies being coined. Some of them are genuine, some of them are marketing tactics, but I think we had a very good discussion, hearing from different aspects. But let me take a break from give a break to our panelists and ask the audience that if they have any questions, or if they would like to make a comment, share their experience with us, please do so. Do we have anyone with the mic? Is there anyone? I mean, I'll appreciate if you can keep the questions very direct and comments, keep them to very short and brief. I appreciate that.
I can manage without the mic.
Well, but can everyone else hear? Yeah, no, there's a mic, I think, coming. Maybe you can, I think, we can then repeat the question to the audience. Please kindly introduce yourself and let you know your affiliation. Okay, let me ask, there's another question from this gentleman. First question was about requesting for the information on the gold sukuk. There was a question from here. Yes, please. Okay. Well, I think they're working on it. I'll go back to ask question the gold sukuk if you would like to share your experience. How does it work?
Sure. Actually, yeah. Thank you very much. Actually, it's a complicated structure, but obviously it's a matter of explaining it in very plain terms to the public was also an issue. And I have to say, in the initial issuances, people were a bit skeptical. But as we came out with several issuances, I think it got a lot of traction. The way it works is, instead of holding your gold at home, you bring it to a public bank where it is actually appraised by professionals over there. And then you are actually up to it has different maturities, 1 year or 2 years. You give your gold to the government for example, for 2 years. At the end of the day, you get the value of your gold at the end of the maturity, plus a premium for like a profit sharing mechanism, for a return, annual return of 2%, as long as you hold the security. And it's also sellable in the secondary. So for some reason, if you need money, if you are in need of money, you can go back to the bank and actually take your money back. So it's a very flexible, structure, but at the same time a complex one. But it is tailored to the needs of the broader public. So instead of holding them at home, we are trying to make sure that they bring the money bring the gold to the bank, and it is now in the system. And to do that, you have to give them a return. That's where that 2% is coming from, actually. You can do both. You can get the gold back, or you can take cash back. That's up to you, actually. It's a very flexible system.
Okay, thank you so much. We had a question over here.
Merci beaucoup. Sidi Mohamed Cherif de la Banque pour le commerce et l'industrie de Mauritanie. Nous remercions nos panélistes pour ces interventions qui sont très passionnantes concernant le sujet qui est en discussion. Ma question va probablement à M. Iqbal, si j'ai bien noté, de la Banque islamique de développement. C'est juste pour savoir ce qui est prévu par la Banque islamique de développement pour aider les pays de l'OCI à renforcer leur cadre législatif, puisque si on voit ce qui a été fait au Maroc, le fait d'avoir mis en place un cadre législatif avec des textes réglementaires et des décrets, ça donne plus de force et ça permet de développer cette industrie de finances islamiques. Donc c'était la précision que je voulais, qu'est-ce qui est prévu, et de noter aussi que j'avais participé à une réunion dont l'un des thèmes était sur la finance islamique, en tout cas ça parlait du secteur financier de l'Afrique du Nord, c'était en Tunisie, mais j'étais un peu choqué de voir que beaucoup de pays musulmans, cette finance islamique n'est pas du tout connue de la population quand on leur parle de cette finance islamique, alors que pour moi c'est un très grand levier pour l'inclusion financière. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much for asking, and I think you have reminded me that I should have given some views on what IDB is doing in this respect, and so I take this opportunity to address that. First of all, your question is what ISDB does. You know, one of the core mandate of Islamic Development Bank is to develop and promote Islamic finance in its member countries. That has always been our mandate. For that purpose, we had a specialized institution called IRTI, Institute for Islamic Research and Training Institution, which has been conducting workshops, conferences, and providing technical assistance to our member countries. So that has been there for many years. In addition to that, IDB's core, under the complex of chief economist, there is another department called IFSDD, Islamic Finance Services Development Department. Now, the core objective of that particular department is to provide technical assistance to our member countries in terms of their developing their regulatory, legal framework, whether it is banking or capital markets or takaful or whatever. So that has provides works with our member countries. I think if there's a particular need for member country, the formal request needs to come through the board of executive to that department, and they will, will see what can be done to address that demand. I think I'm not surprised when you said that, people are not very aware about Islamic finance. I think that is, but I think gradually that is changing. I think another thing I would like to, mention is that our president has given a 5-year plan called P5P, President's 5-year plan, and it has several pillars. One of the pillars is to basically develop Islamic finance in our member countries, because we believe that that's our core business, and we need to help our member countries providing technical assistance in developing the whole different segments of Islamic finance, whether it's banking or capital markets or so. So in that sense, that is very much core part of our strategy, part of our core objectives. Now, I think very briefly, I would like to, share some of the IDB's own experience with Sukuk. As you know, that IDB, all the resource mobilization for IDB is through Sukuk. We do not do any conventional. We always use Islamic finance products to mobilize funds. So in that respect, we have been in the Sukuk market quite a long time. I think we first issue was 2003. We are probably the only AAA issuers of Sukuk issuer in the market. Which makes us very proud that we have, been the only AAA institution in the Sukuk space. In addition to that, like last year, our total funding program was about $5 billion were raised from the markets through using Sukuk mechanism. Out of those, there were 3 Sukuk issuance, public issuance, which were done. And last year was also very, I would say, historic for us, because first time in the history of IDB, we issued a public Euro Sukuk. Which was, again, very historically, our Sukuk has been targeted towards the investors in our member countries, but we wanted to diversify our investors, so we went towards Euro, and we were very warmly welcomed in the Euro market. Our first Euro issuance, which was, we wanted to do just as a test the market to 500 million, but we end up getting orders almost than 700 million, and we end up closing at 650 million. So in that sense, when we go to European investors and we tell them what we do, Islamic finance is more in the terms of more sustainability friendly, it's more ethical, it has sustainability principles built in the principles of Islamic finance, and we get a very positive reply from the investors. We also did $2 issuance, each was more than 1.25 billion. So that shows you that that the Sukuk which IDB issues is very much appreciated in the market. It is well received by the market, and all those, because the investors know that all this money is used for the development of our member countries. And since this is all asset-based financing, so they also know that it's more ethical, and it has a lot of fiscal discipline in it. So I think, I think that's, I'll be happy to meet separately with our team if someone has more questions on IDB Sukuk program. But I think I want to come back to our panelists to benefit from their experience. I think coming back to Daud is, again, HSBC, a leading investment bank, a leading lead manager, has a footprint in all over the globe. What do you see the future of Sukuk market with respect to mobilizing the funds for SDGs? I know that Sukuk is in SRI space, but how can our member countries or multilaterals or IDB can target those investors who want to focus on promotion of sustainable development goals in our member countries?
It's a very good question. If you do look at the investor base, and to just repeat what Michael talked about, I think it's important that, I think the challenges really do lie more with creating the investor base. I think, marrying the principles of Sukuk in with SDG has been done. We were fortunate enough to do it for a local Malaysian ringgit transaction that our Islamic subsidiary did. Indonesia has done it. But I think the challenges very much lie more, I think, with the investor base. And we know that there's a very captive investor base out there in the European and US space, some of which will need to learn more, particularly when it comes to Sukuk. But I think the challenge is really going to be how do we develop that investor base in our own home markets, because that's really going to help to sort of kickstart and fast track a lot more of SDG investment in the member countries. And I think, if you look at, for example, Malaysia, the central bank has been very proactive in that regard. One of the things that it has done as part of its interaction with the Islamic institutions in Malaysia, it's asked them about impact investing. To what extent do the transactions or the financings that the banks do in Malaysia, what is their social impact? What is the impact on society? And the central bank and the Malaysian authorities, working in conjunction with the World Bank, have put together a broadly, a framework for SDG investments in the Malaysian context. As part of that, I understand there are incentives that they're adding on. But I think in the rest of the world, there is a need for this framework, But I think there is a need to incentivize people and to encourage people, either through tax incentives or through more favorable regulatory treatments through the central bank, applying, for example, maybe a slightly lesser risk weighting to a transaction which is structured in SDG format. But I think something needs to be done to be able to spur the investor base here, because as it currently continues, and to Michael's earlier point, you've got to differentiate between a sukuk which is being used to develop a mall in Dubai versus a sukuk which is being used to reduce either the carbon footprint or to help reduce cholera or something else, something which is more socially sustainable. So I think at a government level, and I think this is where MDBs such as World Bank, ISDB themselves, can certainly work with member countries in terms of one being able to put this type of SDG framework in place, and to really then start incentivizing the existing investor base. I think it's going to take too much time to be able to develop an alternative investor base. I think we have to work with the hand that we've been dealt with. So we've got to encourage the existing investors, and these are largely banks. We don't have the luxury of having a broad enough base of investors here. We are very much beholden to banks. But we've got to encourage these banks to start looking at SDG investment more seriously and to start providing, I think, financial or regulatory incentives as a way to kickstart this market.
Daud, if I may ask a follow-up question, if you don't mind, is I've been keep hearing that, we need to mobilize more funds for development, for SDGs and all this thing. And some of the people are talking about retail sukuk, that, rather than going to the institutional investors, go to the common person and they can make small contribution and stuff. What is the market is there any market for any such thing? Or crowdfunding, or doing a kind of utilizing sukuk through crowdfunding and that kind of or retail sukuk. Is there any scope for such thing?
Certainly. I think the one example which one could highlight is Indonesia, where not only have they been very successful in being able to tap retail. So last year in 2018, the Republic of Indonesia mobilized both across dollar and local rupiah, around $12 billion worth equivalent. Now, around $3 billion of that last year was accessed through the dollar market. The balance, $9 billion, was all accessed through the retail market. They benefit from having a very large and significant population. But what they have done now is to work with many of the banks to be able to encourage distribution, as wide as possible. And as of, I think, last December, they've even now developed a mobile app which allows retail investors to be able to subscribe to Sukuk, and purchase the Sukuk by a few clicks of the button through the mobile. I think that's a very innovative way of being able to tap into the demand. Most people now, at least in the more higher median Muslim countries, have access to mobiles, and being able to tap into that, I think, is a very unique way. So they've done that. I think it would certainly work for those countries which have the critical mass in terms of population. Turkey, Egypt, for example, Bangladesh, Pakistan. These are the countries we think it works. But there's a template which has worked very successfully, and I think this could be a very successful template. What the Indonesians have done could be a very successful template in terms of encouraging other sovereigns to look at the retail market much more seriously now.
Thank you, Daud. So that's quite promising. Now let me ask, yes, we have a question from the floor. Could we get a mic, please? Please introduce yourself and ask the question to the panelist.
Thank you. My name is Hassan Usman from Jaiz Bank, Nigeria. My question or comment is about the issue of complexity of Sukuk, which Michael raised. I think we have to come from the background that Sukuk instrument is a response to product availability equivalent to a bond. And it was meant to be Sharia compliant. Now, when you move from the complexities that the Sharia compliance requirement provide and the need for transparency, how are you, what are you suggesting that the market should do to meet the two? That's, first of all, to ensure that the investor knows transparently the structure he is investing in, and secondly, to ensure that you do not move away from those requirements and then lose the originality of the product, and therefore the constituency, the initial constituents of the Sukuk investors are lost. I hope I didn't complicate the question. What I'm saying is there are requirements which make a Sukuk. Now, when you move far away from those requirements and make it simpler for the investors that you are targeting, you might be losing the essence of what a Sukuk is and then just doing a bond. Thank you. I hope that.
Thank you so much. Excellent question, very academic. And I think maybe I will expose Michael to first, since he is by training a lawyer also. Michael, why don't you first take a stab at this question that, you know the conventional market very well, the investor, you know the Sukuk market as well. What do you think, how this issue can be addressed? And then I'll come to Daud.
Well, Daud can give the answer. I can just say that I agree with you. I think a lot of people in this market talk about simplification and standardization. But ultimately, it's supposed to be a different product, right? It's not supposed to be a debt instrument that's stamped Islamic. It's supposed to be a different product. And to me, there's only so much simplification that can occur before do we really have an instrument that is doing something different. So again, I think the answer comes from exposing investors over time to the product with the knowledge that there'll be a pipeline of more to come, which gives them the incentive to study the product. Because if you study it, it becomes less scary and less difficult. So to me, that's the answer is to multiple roadshows to the same investor where the Sukuk product is described. Going the other way and saying Sukuk is too complicated, let's just make it an Islamic bond. I don't think at that point, what's the point? We already have a bond market.
Daud, your thoughts?
It's a very good question. I mean, having had the benefit of working on many transactions, I can tell you that there are times that we've looked at some of these prospectuses in draft format, and we've looked at the diagrams, to Michael's point, and sometimes you have multiple SPVs and you have 40 or 50 arrows going in all sorts of directions, and it looks more like the inside of a nuclear plant than it does a Sukuk transaction. So as bankers, it worries us more that we're having trouble understanding these constructs. How will the investors? We find investors have short memories. I mean, what we certainly do know, and this is through 15 years of experience, is that nobody goes through the prospectus line by line. But there is certainly a need to be able to simplify this, and I think this in part comes down to how do we broaden and educate the market around these products. So I think a way around that would be possibly to have, as part of the prospectus, just the inclusion of a simple 1 or 2 pager, one which says why is this structure different from a regular bond, and for example, how do the key cash flows, how do the profit or the distribution amounts which are payable, how are they generated in just very simple terms? And how is the principle? Because this is what investors are looking for, understanding how the cash flows work. But there is a need, I think, to be able to simplify that. But if we did that, perhaps we're putting lawyers out of a job, and they're making. But I think certainly that could be done as part of a way then to be able to educate the market. Because if we're going to grow the market, if we're going to reach out beyond our traditional borders, then I think the way currently the prospectuses are drafted and the complexity, any investor sitting either in London or in Hong Kong or the US would struggle to understand. So I think simplicity would help to educate people, and then as a consequence, help to broaden the market. So I think I take your points on board. It hasn't been done before, but I think it's something that I think the key practitioners need to take up with the lawyers.
Yes, please, please.
Actually, not specifically on this issue, but I was more thinking about the linkage between the Sukuks and the SDGs, we all talked about, how investors should be informed, how this product should be investor-friendly, but there's an issue side to this, right? I mean, we also have to be happy about this. We have to make sure that, all the effort in terms of both Sukuk as well as, SDG-related instruments has to be easy enough to, come up with. And then, the lead time to a transaction should be reasonable. All those sort of things are also important for the issuer side. And on top of that, when you look at who actually needs the most investments on the SDG side, these are the most vulnerable countries across our region as well, who probably don't have the capacity to borrow from the market, right, at the rates that are available to them. So this is kind of a dilemma I think that we all need to think about, and I think the World Bank and IDB should be innovative on this front. For example, what is coming to my mind, I think World Bank has a product like the partial credit guarantee. Maybe that could be replicated by the IDB, where the least developed member countries can use the guarantee of IDB to issue sukuks for their SDG-related investments. For example, I think these sort of things we probably need. It's not just the market, but the rate of the money available to a specific issuer to meet SDG targets, I think is a big barrier currently we have in the system.
Thank you so much. Very good suggestion. Actually, we ran out of time, but very quick. If you have a very quick question, please.
Bashir Rashidi from Sterling Bank, Nigeria. Will IDB or any of its subsidiaries guarantee or underwrite a corporate sukuk?
Well, I mean, answer is simple. As of now, our articles do not allow us to do guarantees. That's the nature of our business from the very beginning. But I think we have been having some requests, and we'll see what can be done. But as of now, legally, we are not allowed to give any sort of guarantees. Now, I think I really am sorry, there are so many other, I'm sure people have questions and the comments, but we really ran out of time. I'm going to ask everyone, all my panelists, very quickly, maybe 30 seconds, a closing statement indicating that, we want to give a positive message that what can be done to really fully exploit the potential of the Sukuk market. Starting from my right.
الفكرة العامة التي يمكن أن نقولها أن السكوك أداة مهمة لتمويل التنمية المستدامة، ونحن في بلادنا محتاجون إلى التمويل، يعني كل تمويل هو مرحب به، والمجهود الذي يجب القيام به كما قلنا هو تسهيل بعض المسائل وتبسيطها، ما فيها تكلمنا عن التوعية، شرح المصطلحات، شرح ميكانيزمات عمل هذه الصكوك، وكذلك تبسيط تداولها. فالآن مسألة التداول هي مسألة تطرح بعض الإكراهات بالنسبة للبنوك، يجب العمل على وضع قواعد مبسطة لحلها.
Simple solutions to solve the problem.
Well, very briefly, I think, the summary should be something like this. Like every financial product, I think continuous commitment both from the buyer side as well as seller side is important. That's what we are trying to do both internationally and locally. We are trying to supply the market every year at least once, and we are continuously tapping the market so that the product is there, the credit is in front of the investors, and actually we are getting good follow through. I think this is one of the key issues going forward to further develop this market.
Well, the World Bank is fundamentally a conventional financial institution. We have more than 200 billion of interest-bearing loans on our balance sheet. So we recognize that we're not going to be the foremost leader in this area, but we're certainly going to continue to do everything we can to promote Islamic finance and the intersection of Islamic finance and the Sustainable Development Goals, because we believe Islamic finance is critical for the whole issue of financial inclusion in the Islamic world. And as long as people are excluding themselves from the financial system because of their beliefs, that's clearly a problem that we think needs to be solved.
I would very quickly highlight 3 areas. One, I would say the legal framework. I think countries such as Turkey, Indonesia have made good strides in terms of putting together a legal framework which allows for an issuance of Sukuk, but many other countries haven't done that. So I think that's clearly going to be very important. The second element, I think, would be standardization in terms of coming up with 8 to 10 structures which are universally accepted by the investor base, which gives complete certainty, have standardized documents. We spoke earlier from, we had a presentation from IIFM, and they're doing work around standardization. And I think the third element would be the greater use of Sukuk in SDG. What's very interesting is that, if you were to take, and we've seen a case of this, if you were to showcase Islamic finance or Sukuk in the wider Western world on its own, you would have a very limited interest. If you were to combine it as part of an ethical or social sustainable movement, the appeal becomes much, much broader. So being able to educate the wider world around Islamic finance and Sukuk, when you marry these 2 principles together, and they are very complementary, I think you're opening up a much, much bigger world.
Thank you so much, and I think I take this opportunity to thank all our panel panelists. I think they had a very, they shared with us a very rich experience, which I hopefully will be beneficial to our audience. Please join me thanking them for their comments. I believe there's going to be just a quick photo session, so please stay on the stage. Thank you. Going to be photo session or? Well, no, we were told that we have to stay for a photo session, so